So our first speaker today is Matt Craven. Matt is the Managing Director of the CV and Interview Advisors and is regularly engaged as a speaker to deliver advice and guidance to global audiences on all things related to CV authoring, career advancement, LinkedIn, personal branding, and thought leadership. Thank you, Matt, for delivering your wisdom on crafting your career autobiography. Over to you.
Thank you, Janet. Well, with that introduction, I feel very much under pressure now to deliver, but hopefully I can offer some insights that will be useful. And actually, what I wanted to do today is to kind of cover a specific topic that feeds into both career planning and interview technique. And I want to talk to you about something that I've developed that we call a career autobiography. And this is a strategic tool for both career planning and preparing for interviews. And I'd thoroughly recommend anybody at all stages of their career have a bash at creating a career autobiography. It's such a useful tool for many scenarios. Let me explain what it is. So we all know what an autobiography is. I guess we've probably all read one, whether it be a celebrity or a sports person that we really like. They've written down all the kind of key things, interesting things that have happened in their life. And it fills a book of about 300 pages, often on the shelves of the relevant shops at Christmas time, often used as stocking fillers. Well, I imagine that that's quite a lovely process to go through, to actually write a book about all the things that have happened in your life. And I'd imagine those people would be awesome in an interview, because imagine how professionally, or imagine how aware they are now of themselves and the life that they've lived. So I think it's a really good idea to write down all the key events that have happened in your life. But I'm not necessarily talking about your personal life. I'm more talking about your professional life. So imagine it, and it isn't a book, but imagine it is. Let's think of it as a log, a chart, a record of all the key events that have happened in your professional life. Every situation that you overcame, every success that you had, every achievement, every project that you've delivered, all of these interesting stories from your career, all in one place. Now, you might be wondering what this one place is. Is it a Word document? Is it a PDF? Is it some kind of other central repository? Well, actually, it could be anything you want it to be. The way I would recommend doing it is to create a spreadsheet. Most of us will be familiar with the concept of a spreadsheet. So imagine you've got a big spreadsheet, and down the bottom of the spreadsheet, you have some tabs. Each of those tabs represents a skill. And this is where it feeds into career planning, because alongside creating your career autobiography, I would also recommend thinking about all the skills that you currently possess and all the skills that you need, not just for now, but for the jobs you want to apply for next, perhaps the stage after that. So if you think about having a short, medium term, and longer term career plan, there are skills you need to do the job you're in right now. There are skills you will need to do the job that you want to do next, and there'll be skills that you need longer term. Now, if you were to find out what all those skills are, which is fairly straightforward, just from looking at job boards, looking at job adverts, looking at LinkedIn, perhaps using AI tools, it shouldn't be too difficult to do some research and figure out what skills you need, and of course the skills that you have. So you might have a list of maybe anywhere between 30 and even 100 skills listed, and each of those represents a tab in this spreadsheet. And each time you click one of these tabs, up will pop some examples of things that you've done in your career that prove you have that skill. And when I say skill, I'm talking about skills, competencies, experiences. These could be soft skills, hard skills, technical skills, and we're going to include everything. And what you're going to do is you're going to have a record of all these skills and then a record of all the evidence that you need to provide to demonstrate that you actually indeed possess these skills. And of course, that's what you need to do in an interview. And I'll come back to that shortly. But let's go back to career planning. So at this stage, you've got this chart, this log, this record that contains all these examples of things that you've done in your career. All the skills that you need right now and for each stage of your career going forward are represented also in this log. And each time you click a tab, up pop some examples. Okay, so we've got that now. Now, by the way, these examples would be written as little mini case studies, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the STAR methodology. That's the way I would write these little examples. So let's just say one of these tabs is project management. It's a skill that's required, or it might be a skill that we have. So we click that skill, and that brings up a page on our spreadsheet or a sheet on our spreadsheet. And there might be 2 or 3 examples of projects that we've delivered that had nice, successful outcomes written in the STAR methodology. So this document now exists, this lovely career autobiography now exists. So what are we going to do next? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to think about these skills that we need for the next stage of our career. And if we know what skills we need and we know what skills we have, that makes it very easy to do a skills gap analysis. And that skills gap analysis is going to form the foundation of our career planning exercise. Now, of course, career planning is quite a deep subject. I think it was, when was it? Sometime this week, I did a 3-hour workshop on career planning. So to get this into about 2 or 3 minutes is quite difficult. But one of the foundations of career planning is figuring out the skills you have, the skills you need to move forwards in your career, and then figuring out where those skills gaps exist. Once you know where your skills gaps are, you can then set about developing a plan to plug those skills gaps, which might mean doing some training, it might mean doing some qualifications, or it might mean just being proactive and reaching out to your boss or whoever to try and manufacture and gain that experience that you might require. So, for example, a good friend of mine works in HR. And at the time, he was a head of HR, and he wanted to be a HR director. And he went through this process, this exercise, and he identified that he needed more mergers and acquisitions integration experience, more experience around two-pays and more strategic involvement in HR matters. So once he was aware of the skills he had, the skills he needed, and where his skills gaps were, he was able to develop a plan which involved proactively talking to his bosses and being proactive about his career development to go out and seek out those experiences. So it's as simple as that. And the career autobiography is a great tool for doing that. Now, feeding into the interview technique side of things, I firmly believe that the hardest part of an interview isn't actually being there in the interview room. The hardest part of an interview is actually knowing the product that you're selling. And in the interview room, that's you. A little bit like how my son right now is doing his GCSEs. Sitting there doing a 1.5 hour geography exam, as he did today, that wasn't difficult. What was difficult was all the hours of studying and learning and revision that he put in order to feel that he'd only actually got 3 marks wrong. I hope he has. We'll see. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not the interview, it's not the exam that's difficult, it's the revision. So I see interview prep as revision. And the way to revise is to have a career autobiography. Because if you have a career autobiography with all of your professional experience in it, all the examples, all your successes, all the things you've overcome, all your achievements, all your projects, all you then need to do is have a look at the job description. Make a note of the skills and experiences and track record that that particular job needs you to have. And then you can cross-reference that with your career autobiography. You can click the relevant tabs and you can learn the examples. So then when you go to the interview, theoretically, there should never be a question that you get asked that you don't have an answer for, because you know what they're looking for. You've learned your examples and you should be able to go there really well prepared. Now, of course, if you've written those examples in your career autobiography in the STAR methodology, that then makes it super easy to replicate talking in that way in an interview, which is the way that we would recommend you answer competency-based questions and questions where you're asked to give an example of something. So this career autobiography is such a useful tool for all those scenarios. It's also really useful to feed the content for your CV or your LinkedIn profile. If you're having your annual performance appraisal, or perhaps you are looking for a pay rise or a promotion, it's super useful to have this chart, this log, this record of all your professional experiences written as little mini case studies in the STAR formula. It's a chunk of work to put it together. But once you've put it together, and I would start with all your most recent stuff, it's a document that is a living, breathing, organic thing that you keep updated. It's something that I would update perhaps once a month with all the new experiences that you've gained. And I would be using it as a strategic career planning tool throughout your career. Now, there is one caveat here, because what I've found is that when people are asked to give examples of things that they've done, let's take conflict management for an example. So let's just say you're asked to give an example of when you have handled conflict in the workplace. And maybe you've not created a career autobiography, so you're relying on your memory bank, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Because if you rely on your memory bank, all you're going to do is pick the thing that was most recent or the thing that you're kind of emotionally attached to. So perhaps you pick the example where you were managing a project and you had a really difficult stakeholder and you had a massive row with this particular stakeholder that ended up with best part of fisticuffs in the car park. Now, that doesn't really demonstrate that you've got good conflict management skills. All we're demonstrating there is that we got into a situation where conflict happened. Now, obviously, I'm using a rather silly and hopefully slightly amusing example, which would probably never happen in real life. But what I'm trying to get across is sometimes the example you might pick, you might think that you're given an example that proves that you've got good conflict management skills, but no, you're just proving that you've been in a situation where there was conflict. So guess what? When you're thinking about STAR and your examples, it's the result. The result is the most important part. The S, T, and A parts simply tee up the result. The result is the bit that proves that you have that skill or competency or experience required to do the job. Now, I just wanted to make reference also to some help that I'd like to offer, because we know how important it is to have a good CV and a good LinkedIn profile. And I've talked about how a career autobiography can feed into that process. But what I'd like to offer everybody today is a free one-to-one review of their CV and or LinkedIn profile. And I've actually popped a little link into the chat where you can avail that offer. And I thoroughly recommend that everybody who's likely to be even remotely keeping one eye on the job market, make sure that they're job market ready. And being job market ready does involve having a really good CV and LinkedIn profile. So if anybody's interested in availing that, please feel free to take advantage of it. I'd be delighted, or one of my team would be delighted to have a chat with you and run through that for about 15 to 20 minutes and give you some proper, sage and confidential advice. And there's my bit done. So thank you everybody for listening. I hope that was useful.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. That was brilliant. I only wish I had heard about creating a career autobiography at the start of my career and not at the end of it. But it is so useful. And to keep it updated is key, I think, because, and you know, when you fill in those job applications, it can be such a bind. And if something's difficult to do, we all know we're going to procrastinate on it. But if you've got that there, it's like, well, it's like a pick and mix, isn't it? Do you think, okay, this job needs these competencies, these skills. Oh, this is where I've got them on my spreadsheet. So that's brilliant advice. Matt, thank you very much indeed, and for your generous offer to do a CV review for anybody on the call today. Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any questions before we go on? Pop them in the chat or to raise your hand. Excellent. I think you sort of covered everything beautifully. And of course, we have got that interaction with you later. Thank you very much, Matt. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Lynne Gayer. Lynne works for a non-profit organization that provides free advice and support for those unemployed looking to get back into the workplace, regardless of age, experience, and qualifications. So Lynne has a lot of experience in helping candidates and to get them up to speed on their employability skills. So Lynne, thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to hearing your words of wisdom. Thank you very much, Lynne.
Thank you, Janet. So my first question to you, the audience, is how many interview questions are there? And yes, you may say, well, how long is a piece of string? Okay, let me change the question then. What are the 3 interview questions you always have to answer, but you may never be asked? It may sound like a trick question, but it's not, because there are 3 questions you always have to answer when you get to an interview. Can you do the job? Do you want the job? And will you fit? Now, there's an assumption that you can do the job because your CV gets you the interview. And so there's an assumption that you can do the job, and then they're going to delve down in it and ask you more questions, and you just need to back that CV up when you actually get to the interview. Do you want the job? That's going to come from how you come across at the interview and the questions that you ask and the responses that you make. Now, will you fit is a bit more subjective, but if you've done your research on the organisation, that their values match yours, the culture is appropriate for you and your personality, then you're much more likely to fit within that organisation. So, do you want the job? Can you do the job? And will you fit? And one of the questions you get asked at interview, not everybody will get asked this, but quite a lot of people do, is tell me about yourself. It's that tricky question, and I interview hundreds of people in our organisation throughout a year, and so many people get this wrong. So I'm going to do a little role play with Hepzibah now. So if we can screenshot Hepzibah as well, we're going to do a little bit of a role play. Okay. So Hepzibah graduated a couple of years ago, and she's doing some business consultancy, and she wants to pivot into project management. And she's coming for a role at XYZ organisation to be a project coordinator. So Hepzibah, thank you for coming in today, and thank you for applying for the role of project coordinator. So let's kick off. Please tell me about yourself.
Hi, Lynne. Thank you very much for today. It's good to be here. I'm Hepzibah Emerle. I went to school in Ghana. I spent a few years in Ghana. I studied computer science in the university. I originally grew up in Nigeria, so I lived with my family for 17 years. I genuinely like to travel. So I went to Ghana, like I mentioned at first. Then I went to Kyrgyzstan. I did a number of things in the university, and it was just really fun, and it was exciting to like meet people and do a couple of nice things. And yeah, I know this job is for product coordination, right? Project management. Yeah. I think I'll be a good fit genuinely. I like to travel, I like to meet people, and yeah, I think I'll do well. Yeah.
Thank you, Hepzibah. Your thoughts on that? Can she do the job? Does she want the job? Will she fit? I didn't get any of that. And if that's the first question that you are responding to, it needs to be much stronger. Now, I hope none of you do this, but I see so many of people, when they ask the question, tell me about yourself, they literally tell you about yourself. I've had people tell me about their children. So if they tell me about their 4 and 6-year-old, what am I thinking? They need to be picked up from school. They tell me about their sick parents. So what am I thinking? They're going to take time off to look after their parents. They have 5 dogs. Then they'll be late coming into work because they need to walk the dogs. So, you know, and you haven't got a chance to change those opinions, whether they're right or not. And it's not about yourself. It's about what you can bring to the table in relation to the job description and the job specification. So Hepzibah and myself are going to replay that role play, and we're going to do it again. So Hepzibah, thank you for coming in today. And thank you. I understand you've applied for the role of project coordinator in XYZ organization. So let's kick off. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Hi, Lynne. Thank you very much to be here. I'm so excited. I describe myself as a motivated and driven individual who has a clear focus of getting things done. And that is why today I am applying for the project coordinator at XYZ company. Growing up, I've always thought to see myself as a collaborator, as someone who has leadership skills, and that I have gotten from volunteer roles in Toastmasters. I've served as president of Toastmasters Club, where I lead people and I break things down for all my co-executives and co-club coordinators to work with. I've also worked on a couple of projects at the university. For example, I was the main lead for a technological project where we had to interact with clients, we had to define the user requirement, and I had to constantly update the client on what we have done as software engineers and software developers. So that gave me a round and holistic view of how project management is, from both delivering on time and delivering quality project, and also communicating with different stakeholders. I think I'm a good fit to your company because I see that your company is big on culture, big on excellence and integrity in the way you deliver services to your company. With my skills in communication, leadership, project management, and understanding the life cycle of a project, I think I can do the job. Not just only that, but I can generate more impact as a driven, motivated individual. And I look forward to joining your team and being that glue and that support and that impactful person at your company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hepzibah. So you can see the difference that time around. The first time, to be honest, Hepzibah was a bit listless, didn't have the energy, didn't have the motivation. Second time, we had a smile, we had much more energy in the voice. She projected herself better, and she spoke about what is relevant to the role of project manager, now a project coordinator. Now, in this instance, she's pivoting into the role. We weren't expected to have a lot of experience, but actually she demonstrated she had. And one of the things you may have noticed that she mentioned, aside from the project she's actually done, she actually mentioned some work in Toastmasters. Now, sometimes you may find that the work that you have done, the work that may be required, you might not have done in your day job, but you may have done it elsewhere. So that is relevant to actually bring in, because it's actually still very relevant experience. But this time we heard more about skills and experiences. There was enthusiasm. There was much more motivation. There was interest in the organization. So something that, can she do the job? Looking more like it. Does she want the job? She's showing that enthusiasm. And will she fit? Yep, it's beginning to look like she can. Let's continue with the interview. So we're not going to do that now, but you can see the difference between those two responses. One other thing that people tend to do when they do the response, well, I mustn't talk about my cats and my dogs and my pets and my grandparents, they start giving a verbal reiteration of their CV. That's not what this section is about. Tell me about yourself is very focus a few things that's on the job specification or job description that you can do that's going to capture their attention. That's what they want to hear about. What can you do for this company, not what you did 20 years ago. So that's really what we want to put across. And let me tell you now a little bit about my experience, because the CV gets you the interview. Well, when I applied for the job that I have now, a friend of mine said, Lynne, you've got to go for this job. I work for the organisation, you'll be perfect. So I sent my CV off. 2 weeks later, I hadn't heard anything. So I contacted my friend, you need to speak to the CEO. The thing was, my CV didn't get me into the organisation because I hadn't used their language. So when you're doing a CV, think about the language the company is using and put it into your CV. That will make a difference. But as I was bolshy enough, if you like, I contacted the CEO and she said, come in for a chat. Now, whether it's to be a chat or not, I prepared like it was for an interview. We had a chat and then she said, okay, I'm going to actually organise a panel interview. It will be an informal chat. Never believe it when they say that. There was 3 of them sitting 6 feet away behind a table. Then I was sitting over here behind another table and they fired questions at me like bullets. But I have to say, my Toastmasters experience held me in good stead. Who'd have believed it? But because of my table topics experiences where we're asked ad hoc questions and we have to respond on the spot, I was able to keep calm and actually provide responses to each one. And they came across, I think, pretty well. But also, as I mentioned before, they asked me some questions which I didn't have within my day job, but I did have within Toastmasters. Now, I've been a Toastmaster for many years and I've built up a lot of leadership experience. And so they asked me a question and they asked in a way they expected me to say no. Have you ever worked with volunteers? Well, yes, I could reply. I said, I've worked with lots of volunteers within my membership organisation. I've led organisations. I've led a group of organisations. I've worked with individuals, with all the committees of volunteers. They then went on to training. I've done lots of training within Toastmasters. They asked me about mentoring. I've done a lot of mentoring within Toastmasters. And all these things, did I ever believe that Toastmasters would help me get a job? But it absolutely does. And Toastmasters and my day job are also almost a mirror of each other. But when I started doing those things in Toastmasters, I never once for a moment thought that actually they would get me the job. I did them because I thought it was something to develop my speaking skills, an opportunity to develop my leadership skills, but they absolutely helped me get the job in the charity. What also helped me, because there was a panel interview, is it taught me about eye contact. Now, we don't always like to look at people. We like to look away. So here I'm looking right at the camera and hopefully you can see that I'm doing that. But actually, when you're on a panel, sometimes someone asks you a question and you just focus on that person. But the other 2 people or 3 people or however many are on a panel will also be assessing you. So I made sure that I made eye contact with everyone on the panel, even if one person was asking me a question. I still brought in my eye contact with the others. And I've actually chaired panels where there've been 9. I've been a non-exec director and I've chaired panels in the NHS where there've been 9 people and everyone is assessing you. So if you do have a panel interview, think about your eye contact. Think about that you may need to bring maybe extra CVs. You may, if you've got a portfolio or something, if you're very creative, you may need to bring a few extra copies with you to share amongst the panel. So that is something to think about if you're going down that path. So let's go back to, can you do the job? Do you want the job? And will you fit? They are the questions that you need to back up to every response that you give. No one's ever going to ask you, do you want the job, right? You need to demonstrate that you can do the job in your responses and your research and the questions even that you may ask them towards the end of your interview. And then will you fit? Well, always start with a smile. Think about how people dress within their organization. I always suggest you dress one step ahead, but you want to be able to fit. If everyone is going around in jeans and t-shirts, you might want jeans and t-shirt and a jacket over the top. All right, but think about how you can fit within that organization. Like I say, that is the subjective one, but you absolutely can demonstrate that you want the job and you can demonstrate that you can do the job. And one thing I have to say, don't ever be afraid to use experiences that you have had in either a membership organization or a hobby where you've been able to demonstrate things. They also can be relevant in a workplace. The organization I work for, we're always encouraging people to volunteer because it helps people get things on their CV. It also helps people, and to actually build their skills and experiences. And it allows people to sort of demonstrate an interest in something which can really help them to actually get the job that they actually want to get. Within my organization, we have a lot of people who are advisors or volunteers, but they bring a huge amount of value. So don't ever underestimate the value of what volunteering can do and the experiences that you can then bring to an interview when it's relevant. So just to recap, always remember, can you do the job? Now, there's your CV will be the forerunner to that. Then you just need to demonstrate it. Do you want the job? Bring your energy and your focus and your interest in the organization, and then have done your research on the values of the organization and the culture of the organization, and will you fit? And always remember that question, tell me about yourself. It's the skills and experiences that you can bring to the organization. It's not about your pets, your kids and your grandparents. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Lynne. And that was a really good interaction between Epsiba and Lynne, and also shows the advantage of practicing. Now, it seems a bit silly to practice an interview, but to actually go through that and then review it and say, yes, maybe there wasn't enough energy, I wasn't that enthusiastic, or whatever it is, just to review your performance and then to get feedback for yourself. I would now like to invite Ron Mayne, with his 10 tips in 10 minutes. Ron is a human resources consultant, international job coach, and mentor. He has written and spoken extensively on all things recruitment, hiring, and interview techniques. And we're lucky that he's distilled his top 10 tips into 10 minutes. So are you ready to take notes? Thank you very much indeed, Ron.
Thank you, Janet. As I said, my name is Ron Mayne. I've got some 20 years experience in recruitment, training, development, and induction workshops. And I'm the person that's sitting across the desk from many people like yourselves saying those questions that Lynne's mentioned earlier tonight. I've looked through thousands of CVs and done hundreds of interviews, and here is my top 10 tips in 10 minutes. So, first of all, tip number 1, your CV. Is it up to date? It is your advertisement. If it's a good advertisement, people are going to be interested in the product, you. If it's a bad, no interest, no job. Check it, check your grammar, check your spelling. But you can't see your errors in your CV. This is a fundamental thing. We don't see our own errors. Get someone to check it. Matt, if you can give us a wave, Matt has very kindly stepped up and offered to review people's CVs for them. One of the fundamental things we do in Toastmasters is to evaluate, to give good feedback. And you need that on your CV, because the better CV gives you a better chance of landing that job. Tip number 2, postcode, town where you live. It is your choice. There are legitimate companies out there looking to hire you. However, there are criminals out there who are trying to get your information. If you put your name, the main town or postcode, and all your contact details, your email, phone number, how they can get in touch with you, LinkedIn profile, you don't need to put your address. There was a case that I actually heard of where a company weren't interviewing people. They were asking all these questions, bank details, parents' maiden name, and all of this. They were trying to fish information to actually use that to defraud those people. Tip number 3, tell the truth. Put all the good things into your CV. If you haven't got a lot of experience, you may need to pad it a little, but do not under any circumstances lie. When we're looking to recruit people, we do background checks. It is very easy to check your educational history and other information about yourself. If you tell lies and you're found out, you'll not only lose your job, but you will possibly be committing fraud and end up in prison. And there are actual cases where people have ended up in prison because of that. Number 4, save your format, save your CV in a couple of formats, Microsoft Word and a PDF format. Agencies who send your CV out to people will ask for it in MS Word. And the reason is they're going to remove your details so that the prospective company who's going to employ you can't contact you direct and cut out their commission. That's fine. PDFs work in a lot of other circumstances. They're smaller to send and in most cases can't be altered. So it's a safe use. Number 5. Now you've got that perfect CV. It's time to get it out there. Now you can register on all the job boards. The main ones are Indeed, Total Job, Reed, Monster. A number of agencies have their own job boards. This is somewhere where you can put your CV for employers to read it and have a look at it and see if they want to contact you. But also, all of these will have an automatic send out to an email of jobs that are within your bracket. Be aware, those jobs are sponsored. So a company pays to be on those websites. They pay an additional amount of money so that you'll get those emails. A tip number 5 is to check on those sites. Go on to Indeed, go to Total Jobs, go to Reed, go to Monster, go to as many of them as you can and check out all the jobs that are in your profile. That way you get the maximum choice of jobs for you to look for. Number 6, job agencies. These are people that companies go to, find me this person, find me that person. They are not your friends. You need to really understand they're not your friends. They are there to sell you to a prospective employer who will pay them for the introduction. Some agencies will actually employ you on behalf of a company. They get an ongoing payment all the time you're working for that company. Remember, be professional, be friendly, chat with them, but keep at the back of your mind, they're not your friends. They're there to sell you. Number 7. Congratulations! You've landed that interview. Well done. Because your CV's got you in, as Lynne has said, as everyone else, your CV has got you through the door. There are 3 mediums that are used: telephone, Teams, or in person as a general rule. So all the people in the room, you've got an interview at 10 a.m. What time are you going to turn up for that interview? Just think, mentally think that in your head. Think of the time you're going to turn up for that interview that is going to be at 10 a.m. If your answer is anything later than 9:30 for that 10 o'clock, that half-hour window before, then you need to change your viewpoint. There is a saying that if you're on time for a meeting, you're 15 minutes late. That's a fundamental thing. You allow another 15 minutes for an interview because you're going to be a bit nervous. In those 15 minutes, you can go to the bathroom, you can just calm your nerves down. So it's that half-hour window. Remember, getting a new job is going to change your life. Invest time, make sure you're going to get there in plenty of time, allow for transport, and allow that half-hour window to show them you really want that job. You are really interested. And they should employ you because being late is not an option. Number 8. Is it an in-person interview or is it on Teams? Dress appropriately. Now, Teams, you can wear what you like on the bottom half. We all know that someone's going to be in a pair of Crocs and shorts. And don't stand up, else they'll actually know that for real. But if you're turning up in person, Shoes clean, shirt or blouse ironed, dress appropriately for the role. Lynne mentioned if it's t-shirts, wear a jacket, but look smart, look professional. People hire professionals. If they see you as a professional, they are more likely to hire you. It is their impression of you. Number 9, grab your mobile phone now and look for the record function to record your voice. For a telephone interview, or if somebody's having a conversation with you from an employment agency or the employer, stand up. Your voice will sound better because of this. When we give speeches at Toastmasters, we quite often stand up. Once this session is done, get your mobile phone, find the record facility, sit down, hunch your shoulders, and read a small passage from a book or recite something. Recite your name, your address, whatever, into the phone. Then stand up, pull your tummy in towards your back, read the same paragraph again. Play both recordings back. You will hear the difference. You will have more energy. Your voice will sound clearer. There will be a better tone. These are important things because you impress them with your voice. Number 10, join Toastmasters. This will build your confidence in how to speak to people, how to deal with interviews and meetings. By sounding great, people's opinion of you will become great. For me, it was a light bulb moment when I got up and spoke to a room of 200 of my work colleagues for an impromptu 5-minute speech. It wowed them and got me noticed in the company and improved my career prospects. Remember, it's not always the best candidate that gets the job, it's the one that sounds the best at interview. Remember, it's not always the best candidate, and that may not be fair, it's the one that sounds the best. Toastmasters will make you sound the best. Thank you.
Ron, thank you very much indeed. So good to have it clearly set out in those 10 tips. I've also heard about that I thought as if you're 5 minutes, if you're on time, you're 10 minutes late. It's getting worse. You're 15 minutes late, but it's absolutely true. And there's so many unexpected things that can happen. So which is your top 10 tip? You could put that in the chat. Which is the one that you're really going to take away? Say, yep, I need to remember that. And I also like that simple thing about dressing for the job. It just makes you feel so much better. You dress the way you're expected to dress and you really feel part of the company already halfway through the door. So thank you very much indeed, Ron. That was really insightful. Thank you. We will be asking you to complete a feedback form just to say how you found the sessions. I know we had a technical problem with some of you entering the room. We're going to make up for that. And Seema, thank you. Put the feedback form in the chat. Now, Matt, who started off with the Career Autobiography, is going to give us an overview of that before Mark concludes with his session. So thank you very much indeed, Matt, and welcome.
Thanks, Janet. Yeah, so I'm going to try and rattle through my bit again, but I wanted to talk about something that I've developed called a career autobiography. And this is a very useful tool for two situations. Number one, career planning, and number two, when you are preparing for interviews. Now, the best way to think about a career autobiography is to think about an actual autobiography that any celebrity or famous sports person might have written. It's a chart, a log, or a record of all the key interesting events that have happened in their life. So what I'm really suggesting here is that you do the same, but don't worry about all the things that have happened in your personal life. Worry about all the things that have happened in your professional life. And what you're going to do is create a document. And that document contains all your projects, all your interesting experiences, all the things you've overcome, all your achievements, and they're all in there. And I'd recommend, and you can have whatever you want here. You can make it into a Word document. You could have some kind of other interesting repository. It could live in some project management tool. I would create a spreadsheet. I think that's the simplest way to do it. And if you populate this spreadsheet with all these events that have happened in your professional life, and then the next task is to start assigning skills to these events. So alongside creating this repository for all these key events that have happened in your professional life, you'll be researching all the skills that you should know all the skills that you currently have, but you'll certainly be researching all the skills that you need for the next stage of your career, and perhaps even the skills that you need for the stage of your career after that. And those skills become the tabs in your spreadsheet, you know, down the bottom where you've got all the little tabs, and when you click each tab, a new sheet comes up. You might have one for project management, one for strategy, one for stakeholder management, one for something else. And each time you click one of these tabs, up will appear at least one, hopefully two, maybe even three examples of things you've done in your professional life that demonstrate that you possess that particular skill or experience or competency. And when we think about career planning, what we're suggesting here is that you use that as a tool for doing a skills gap analysis. So if you know the skills you have and you know the skills you need, and you're using the spreadsheet in a very rudimentary fashion, it'll be very obvious where your skills gaps are, because if you click a tab in your career autobiography and nothing pops up and you can't think of anything, well, hey presto, you've got a skills gap. Then it becomes incumbent upon you to do something proactive to fill that skills gap. So it's an excellent tool for career planning and figuring out where you might be lacking in certain areas. But it's also a great tool for preparing for interviews, because if you've got all your professional experience all in one place and you've got a job description in the other, you read the job description, you very quickly are able to identify all the skills and experiences and that you need in order to satisfy the requirements of that particular role. You can just quickly go over to your career autobiography, click the tabs that represent the skills that you read in the job description, and learn those examples. And therefore, you'll never theoretically be asked a question in an interview that you cannot answer. So it makes preparing for interviews super, super easy. So this career autobiography is a fab tool. It's also great for a number of other scenarios. So let's just say you've got an annual performance appraisal coming up. Well, there's your body of evidence that you've done a cracking job that year. It's also great if you're pushing for a pay rise or a promotion. It's also fantastic to inform the content for your CV. That brings me on to my final point, because the CV is so, so important. And I'd like to offer everybody on the session today a free, confidential, one-to-one review of their CV or LinkedIn profile, or both, if you choose to do so. One of my team or myself will be happy to jump on a 15-20 minute call and do a deep dive into your CV and to give you some proper sage advice on where we think it's at. So there concludes my part. It was very challenging having to get all that into the shortened space of time. So I hope I managed to get my message across successfully there. But anyway, I hope that was useful. Thank you for listening.
So that was really a useful overview of your CV autobiography and how important it is to always be updating it with the latest things you've done. Sometimes we forget about the good things we've done, and that's such a pity. We write it down, then you remember. It's like reading old letters. You think, oh, did I really do that? That was good. So great advice. Thank you very much indeed, Matt. And now I would like to invite Mark, our final speaker. Mark is a member of SAP Toastmasters. It's a corporate club. So Mark is going to tell us the benefits of being a member of a Toastmasters to your career and to your life. So please welcome Mark.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster, and good evening to all of my fellow Toastmasters, and of course, good evening to any guests that might be on the phone with us here as well this evening. I've had a number of great things happen right throughout my career. Many of them I'm actually quite happy with, and there's even a few that have made me very proud. I've also had some not so great things happen in my career. Two of them occasionally spring to mind. One of them was in my late 20s, and the other was in my late 40s. But for neither of them was I fully prepared. For the first one, I was young. I was full of youthful experience and exuberance and joie de vivre, and I probably got through that situation without even realizing it. The second one was a little bit different and more difficult. I was older, had more commitments, I had more responsibilities, and if I'm honest with you, it really shivered my timbers. None of these were extremely difficult, extraordinary events. They were just life events. They were the type of events that can catch you off guard, and they certainly caught me off guard. Fortunately, for the second event, Toastmasters caught me bobbing along in the wake of the second event. However, a Toastmaster that I know invited me along to one of his club meetings, and along I went. I wasn't expecting much from Toastmasters because, to be honest with you, I've never really had a fear of public speaking. That wasn't really so much of a problem for me. But two things happened, and these things happened very, very quickly. The first is that I learned that public speaking isn't just about public speaking, or indeed, it's not also about just speaking in front of an audience. Toastmasters is very much, and public speaking is very much around communication. And communication isn't just about the words that we use. It's about the impression that we leave on our audience. It's about the memories that they take away with them. It's about the change that occurs. And most importantly, it's about what happens next after the speech. So for me, Toastmasters it's always on. Toastmasters was never about preparing me for the last interview that I did. It was never just about preparing me for the next speech that I'm about to give. Toastmasters, as I said, is always on, always helping me to manage the thoughts that are going around in my head, always helping me to manage those thoughts into a speech, deliver that speech, and hopefully create a moment of magic. So if you're interested in Toastmasters and you're not already a member, all you have to do is go to toastmasters.com, go to the top right-hand side of the website, you'll see Find My Club, and from there, you should be able to navigate yourself to a club in your neighborhood. Your employer may already have a corporate club, so you can look into that as well. Once you find the club, you'll hopefully be able to find your self-confidence. That's the second thing that I found with Toastmasters. I found my self-confidence. It had rattled me in the beginning, but finding it, I also found that the ideas that were bursting to get out of my head, I found that I wasn't afraid to let them out. I found that I learned how to ditch the nerves that weren't helping me get to what I wanted in life, and also to keep the nerves that were helping me to achieve what I was trying to achieve. So Toastmasters, in summary, and to our guests as well this evening, Toastmasters helped me to understand what public speaking is all about, what communication is all about, what impressions I can give from my ideas, what moments of magic I can create. Toastmasters, most importantly, helped me to win that self-confidence back that I had in my 20s, lost it in my 30s, didn't have it in my 40s. It's back. Thank you very much, Toastmasters, for listening. Good night. Have a great evening. And thank you for having me this evening. I wish you all the very best of good luck. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Yes, you certainly have recaptured that exuberance and that joie de vivre that comes across so beautifully. And also what you say about it's the memories we take with us. Didn't you just love the way Mark was so relaxed and so cheerful and excited and enthusiastic about what he's gained from Toastmasters? And I agree totally with everything he has said. I've been a member of Toastmasters for many years. I've derived so many benefits. And as Mark says, not just in the public speaking, it's the developing confidence now. And what I really love doing now is passing that on to students. I will go into schools and I will deliver the public speaking and confidence building program that Toastmasters have developed for schools. That is my thing at the moment, and I love doing it because it's sharing the love of Toastmasters and the benefit. So why waste our time being shy, lacking confidence, when we can get those skills to share our knowledge and our love with other people. It's just such value to society, and we need that at the moment. So that brings us to the end. Do we have any questions before we close? Seema, any final words from you before we wrap up?
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much to all our wonderful presenters today. You've taken time out to share your knowledge with us and help us improve. As they say, Toastmasters is about changing lives, one speech at a time. So all those who have visited Toastmaster clubs and are still wondering whether Toastmasters is for you, I would say jump in with both your legs, because it has helped a lot of us, and it will definitely make a change in the way you communicate or lead teams. And if you haven't visited yet, please do look at a club which is close by to you, whether it's an online club, whether it's an in-person club. If you're challenging yourself to learn a new language, we do have language clubs within our district too. So look forward to seeing you here, and please do share your feedback. We want to continue helping you and sharing knowledge. So look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.